guys? Welcome back to another book review. It is always your grateful host, Cam Williamson, and today we are taking on A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This is take 2. I tried to do this yesterday, and for whatever reason, all the odds were against me. My camera crashed, the files died. It was a nightmare. If you guys are new to my channel and you don't know what goes on here, go ahead and thumbs up the video now, subscribe so we can be friends. You guys will see I format all these reviews the same. I'll read the back of the book. I'll give you a general overview of what I thought and the general plot of the book. And then I will 3, 2, 1, and we'll go into spoilers. We'll all talk about the book and everything encompassing it. It's more of a book talk section, if you will. So we have reviews and book talk. You're welcome. Let's get into it. I have my glasses on, so my reading should be decent. When 19-year-old huntress Farah kills a wolf in the woods, a terrifying creature arrives to demand retribution. Dragged to a treacherous magical land she knows only about from legends, Farah discovers that her captor is not only a beast, but one of lethal, immortal fairies who once ruled her world. At least he's not a beast all the time. As she adapts to her new home, her feelings for a fairy, Tamlin, transform from icy hostility into a fiery passion that burns through every lie she's been told about the beautiful, dangerous world of the Fae. But something is not right in the fairylands. An ancient wicked shadow is growing, and Farah must find a way to stop it or doom Tamlin and his world forever. Okay, as you saw, I stumbled over the name Farah the whole time. It's tough. There's Farah, who's the main character of the book. You have fairies. You have the Fae. So there's a lot of fizz going on in this. There's a lot of characters. I like the names. Tamlin, Lucian, Raylan, I think, is how the high leader of the Night Court's name was. And you have a lot of names. So let's just jump into where the book starts, like you heard on the back of the book. Farah is out hunting. Her family has become impoverished due to her father losing his wealth. She's out hunting. She sees a doe. She sees a wolf-like creature stalking the doe. She notices his eyes gleaming, wonders if it could be a fairy. Knows she's not supposed to kill a fairy. Thinks, if I don't kill this thing, we're going to starve. This is at least a week's worth of food. Boom, shoots. Okay? Next night, a beast-like creature shows up to demand retribution and takes her as his captive, right? So here's the thing. That beast who shows up is Tamlin. He shows up in his beast form. When they get back to the magical world, the transition, my sister and I were talking about this because we were reading this simultaneously together. We were saying the transition from the human world, her being taken captive, going into the fairy realm, was a little anticlimactic. They knocked her out. She doesn't see anything. She wakes up. She's in this enchanted castle-like manor estate. Here's the thing. It's very Beauty and the Beast dark, like the Emma Chamberlain version of Beauty and the Beast. I like it. I'm not a fantasy guy. I've never read a fantasy book. This is my first one. It took me a while to get into this book. I was maybe chapter 14 in. They're short chapters, so that's not real long into the book. Before I was like, okay, I'm in. Tamlin in his beast form was the hardest thing for me to picture in my head. When you're doing a fiction book or you're reading one, you have to make the movie go off in your own mind, which is why, people love the Lord of the Rings type movies and stuff like that, because that movie that you painted in your mind, you get to see it come to fruition. This would make a great movie. As far as elves, and there's no elves, but as far as fairies go, they're not like Tinkerbell fairies. It's more what you would think of shapeshifters, and they call themselves that, but they're not. They do have pointed ears, but they're not like, and again, one of them has wings, but they're beasts. They transform into beasts. But so Tamlin is a very cool character. I like him a lot. He's very soft and gentle. It's not a rough imprisonment. She's being held in a chamber and forced to do work. He's very nice to her. He gives her this awesome slate in the manor, and everyone's very kind to her. There's a worker that's assigned to her. Her name is Alice. All the characters in the book have to wear masks due to a curse that's on them, and a darkness falls upon the Spring Court, which is what Tamlin is the High Lord of. So that's the thing. There's a lot of ranks and titles. You have like High Fae, so you have fairies, and then you have High Fae, then you have High Lords, And then you have like the highest lord, which is a high queen called Amethyst. She doesn't show up until the end of the book. Her name starts to be mentioned right towards the end as well. So Tamlin and Lucian are best friends. Lucian lives in Tamlin's manor, and he's a kind of a refugee from his own court. He comes from the Autumn Court, where his father and his brothers were pretty nasty to him. So now he just works as kind of Tamlin's right-hand man. He comes in early. You think he's going to try to compete for Farah's love, but it's obvious pretty quick that he knows better than to do something like that. Tamlin is very powerful. He's very quiet. There's not any possession over Farah. He's just very kind to her. He wants to try to do the right thing under the contracts of this treaty, where if she killed an innocent fairy who was not provoking her, the deal is they have to take that human back or kill them. And she chose not to be shredded to ribbons, as he called it. They use that a lot in this book. I'll shred you to ribbons, which I kind of like it. The book really picks up towards the end. Like I said, it's a slow burn in the beginning. But in the end, when you have the actual court trials come on, which how that comes to be is obviously Farah and Tamlin fall in love. And he sends her away due to the darkness that's falling over the court, releases her from the treaty and her imprisonment, and how she reacts to that lands her in a court of trials where she has to perform some tasks for her life and a lot of other people's lives around. So let's give the general review. I love this book. I would give it 5 out of 5 stars, 10 out of 10. I loved it. I think everyone should read it. It's a great read. Was there any negatives? It took a minute. It took a minute for me to get into it, but that's not a negative of the book. That's just my style. It was a hard world build for me. Even now, I still don't really have a great picture of what the Tamlin and Lucian and them look like in their beast form, but that's okay. I've seen some fan art that I enjoyed from like Pinterest and stuff like that, and it's cool. So I'm going to get into the spoilers in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so now that you've sat through the basics, I'm not going to recap that. We can talk more nitty-gritty about the story. The story somehow kept you captivated while there was really nothing going on. So once she makes the transfer from the human realm to the fairy realm, her and Tamlin kind of keep their distance from each other. The relationship that builds is more between Farah and Lucian as friendly, kind of hostile banter. All the while, there's this almost prepping going on where Farah is definitely being prepped for Tamlin. You can almost feel it in the pages of the book. And in that, you're like, okay, I clearly like Tamlin, Farah together. He's this high lord. He's super powerful. He can obviously protect her. Again, very Beauty of the Beast. He changes into a beast. He goes hunting. He spends a good portion of the middle of the book. He has to go out every night and start hunting these dark entities that are around. He begins when she first gets there by telling her, hey, stay in the manor, stay in the house, don't go out, don't go around. There's a bunch of shit that's out there that you don't really want to mess with. And she ignores that, trying to still kind of looking for an escape. Her biggest thing is she wants to make sure her family's taken care of. Well, one night there's a dark entity that pretends to be her father, and he's like humbling up on his crutch. He's got a bad leg. He's like hobbling up to her and going, come with me. And she's like trying to get to him, not so much to run, just to be like, hey, let me talk to you. Let me make sure you're good, that kind of thing. And, she might have ran, but she was even preparing in her mind, like, what am I going to do if I run? It's this far to the furthest border. He's not going to make that, especially that fast. He's not going to survive, And she's like, it's best that I just talk to him and tell him I'm fine, whatever. Well, it was a dark entity. It wasn't even her dad. She ends up having to be saved from this dark entity that's gripping onto her mind, and just it's really creepy. It's like, look at me, and it gave me a very like Voldemort, Harry Potter, whatever those dark black shadowy things were. They mentioned a lot how Raylan, whatever his name was, the High Lord of the Night Court. He like evaporates into dark shadows, and he like turns into the darkness. So that was kind of cool. Raylan shows up, and I'm sure I'm saying his name wrong. I don't know why I can't remember his actual name, and it might be right. But he shows up during the trial. So When Tamlin sends Farah away, she goes back, believing Tamlin makes her fall in love with him really by saying, I put a glamour on your family. They think that you're out visiting an aunt, and I gave them riches. They're wealthy. They think you're fine. So when she finally goes back, she realizes that's true. He did. So they haven't been suffering. They're millionaires in their term again. They're just handing gold out left and right. So when she gets back, she's like, I can't do this. He took care of my family. I have to go help him. Whatever this darkness is, I have to. She shows up back at the fairy realm in his house. The house is smashed. Alice is there, says Athena took him, has to go. She drops her off at the edge of this mountain because they're under the mountain. That's where her kingdom is. And she goes, look, this is a suicide mission. You shouldn't do this. But if you're going to, know these couple things. Don't trust your senses. Don't make any deals unless your life depends on it. And there was one other one that I don't remember. Oh, and just listen. Always listen to what's going on around you. You'll hear the right answers. So she ends up getting caught immediately by a dark entity that takes her to the High Queen. Immediately, you think, oh, well, she's just going to die. She ends up going, well, if you're here for Tamlin, which she was, there to rescue him, and everyone else in this court, you could perform 3 tasks for me, or you can get out instantly by solving this riddle. And she does this really long riddle, which, spoiler, as soon as she reads it, I go, the answer is love. The answer is love. The answer is love. Get out of there. The answer is love. She doesn't answer the riddles. She goes through the 3 trials. It's actually a really cool read. The first one's this big scary worm thing. Second one is like a series of levers. Third one, she has to shoot some elves. The last one is Tamlin. And she does it. Or not shoot them, stab them. They end up killing the High Queen. And they're happy back in their manor. And she gets turned into a High Lord. Or a High Fae. So she becomes immortal. I cannot wait to read A Court of Mist and Fury. If you guys have read this book, let me know what you think about it. Let me know if there's any details that you think we should discuss that I didn't gloss over. I try to give you guys enough to give a review, but not enough that it's not worthy to read the book if you haven't. If you just enjoy the book talk before actually reading the book, there's a couple of people that have told me they do that. That's cool. I enjoy you guys being around. Just dig into it, read it, and then come back and really we'll talk about everything. So let me know. See you guys in the next book review. Love you.